The first time Alicia stumbled through our front door at 3 in the morning, mascara smudged and claiming exhaustion from a late team meeting, I believed her. Hell, I even felt sorry for her. If marriage is a haunted house, mine had been creaking for months, but I figured every couple goes through rough patches. I was an idiot. My name is Alex Harper, and I manage 3 restaurants in downtown Phoenix. I've seen enough lying customers, cheating employees, and backstabbing business partners to recognize deception when it's served on a silver platter. But when it came to my own wife, I was apparently blind as a bat, wearing sunglasses in a coal mine. Alicia worked in HR at Morrison Industries, a mid-sized manufacturing company that made car parts. For 8 years of marriage, she'd never once come home after midnight. Now, suddenly, she was pulling these mysterious late nights twice a week, sometimes 3 times. Her excuses varied: emergency meetings, system crashes, team-building exercises that ran long. "Baby, I'm so tired from work," became her nightly mantra as she'd collapse into bed without even washing her face. The woman who used to spend 20 minutes on her skincare routine was now too exhausted to remove her makeup. Red flag number 1, but I was still playing the supportive husband role. Nay. The second red flag was her gym bag. Alicia had joined CrossFit 6 months earlier, claiming she needed to get back in shape. Fair enough. What wasn't fair was how her gym clothes never smelled like sweat. I do laundry in our house, have since we got married, and I know what workout clothes smell like. Hers smelled like fabric softener and lies. Red flag number 3 was her phone. Alicia had always been casual about her phone, leaving it on counters, asking me to answer texts while she drove. Now it was glued to her hand like a life support device. She took it to the bathroom, to bed, even to get a glass of water. When I joked about it, she laughed it off. "Work's been crazy, honey. I need to stay connected." Connected to what? Or whom? The breaking point came on a Tuesday night in October. I was reviewing inventory reports at the kitchen table when her phone buzzed on the counter. She was in the shower, and the screen lit up with a text preview. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Same place? D. D." Not a coworker's name I recognized, not signed with the formal tone of business communication, just D with a winky emoji that made my stomach drop like a lead balloon. I didn't confront her that night. Instead, I did what any suspicious husband would do. I started paying attention, really paying attention. Alicia's late nights followed a pattern. Always Tuesday and Thursday, sometimes Friday. She'd come home disheveled, claiming exhaustion, and immediately shower. The next morning, she'd be unusually cheerful, humming while making coffee, being extra affectionate. Classic guilt behavior. Her best friend Susie Vega was always around during this period, stopping by for girl talk or inviting Alicia out for stress relief shopping trips. Susie had been Alicia's maid of honor, her confidant since college. If anyone knew what was going on, it was Susie. Susie was married to Dominic Vega, a guy who looked like he'd stepped off the cover of a fitness magazine and had the personality of a used car salesman. Dominic was one of those men who called everyone buddy and spoke too loudly at parties. He worked as a foreman at Morrison Industries, the same company where Alicia worked. The pieces were starting to form a picture I didn't want to see. My friend Richard Chen was hosting his annual Halloween party, and both couples were invited. Richard and his wife Nikki had been our friends for years, the kind of people who noticed everything but said nothing until you asked directly. "You doing okay, Alex?" Richard asked me, the week before the party. We were at Murphy's Bar, our usual Thursday night spot. "You seem distracted lately." "Marriage stuff," I said, not ready to voice my suspicions. "You know how it is." "Actually, I don't," Richard replied, which was his polite way of saying Nikki would never pull the crap I was describing. "But if you need to talk, I'm here." The Halloween party was going to be interesting. Alicia had bought a Catwoman costume, black leather that left little to imagination. When I asked about my costume, she shrugged and said, "Whatever you want, honey. I'm sure you'll figure something out." I went with a pirate outfit, classic, simple, and appropriate for what I was beginning to suspect would be a night of plundering, my wife's secrets. The night before the party, I found the receipt. I was looking for our insurance cards in Alicia's purse. She'd asked me to find them for a doctor's appointment, when my fingers brushed against a folded piece of paper. Red Roof Inn, October 15th, 2-hour stay, paid in cash. The signature line read, A. Harper and D.V. D.V. Dominic Vega. I sat in our kitchen, staring at that receipt like it was written in a foreign language I was desperately trying to translate. 2 hours at a cheap motel, paid in cash to avoid credit card records. My wife's neat signature next to the initials of her best friend's husband. Nothing says team building like a 2-hour stay at the Red Roof Inn. The rage hit me like a freight train, followed immediately by a strange sense of clarity. I wasn't the naive husband anymore. I was a man with information, and information was power. The question was, what was I going to do with it? Halloween night arrived with the kind of October chill that makes you grateful for indoor parties. Richard and Nikki's house was decorated like a haunted mansion, complete with fog machines and a soundtrack of creaking doors. Under different circumstances, I would have enjoyed the hell out of it. Alicia looked stunning in her Catwoman costume. The black leather hugged every curve, and the mask gave her an air of mystery that would have been sexy if I didn't know what she was hiding underneath it. I felt like an idiot in my pirate outfit, eye patch, fake sword, the whole 9 yards. At least the irony wasn't lost on me. I was dressed as a man who took what wasn't his, while my wife was apparently doing the same thing. "You look great, baby," Alicia said, adjusting my fake beard. "Very swashbuckling." "Thanks," I replied, forcing a smile. "You look dangerous." She laughed, not catching the double meaning. That's the point. The party was in full swing when we arrived. Richard and Nikki had gone all out. He was dressed as a vampire. She was a witch. About 30 people milled around their living room and kitchen, drinks in hand, music pumping. Normal Halloween party stuff, except nothing felt normal anymore. I spotted Dominic immediately. He was impossible to miss, 6'2", built like a linebacker, and wearing nothing but a loincloth and fake leopard skin. Tarzan, of course. The guy was practically naked in 40-degree weather, which should have been my first clue that he wasn't the brightest bulb in the chandelier. "Alex, buddy!" Dominic boomed when he saw me, extending a hand that could probably crush walnuts. "Great costume, man. Very authentic." "Thanks," I said, shaking his hand and resisting the urge to squeeze back hard enough to make him wince. "Tarzan, huh? Bold choice for October." "Yeah, well, you know me. Go big or go home." He flexed his biceps, and I swear 3 women nearby actually sighed. Susie picked it out. Speaking of Susie, she appeared at that moment, wearing an identical Catwoman costume to my wife's. They'd planned this, obviously. 2 Catwomen prowling around the party like they owned the place. "Alex," Susie squealed, giving me a hug that lasted just a beat too long. "Love the pirate thing. Very sexy." I glanced at Alicia, expecting some reaction to her best friend calling her husband sexy, but she was busy staring at Dominic's chest. Real subtle. The evening progressed with painful predictability. Alicia and Dominic gravitated toward each other like magnets, finding excuses to stand close, laugh at each other's jokes, and engage in the kind of flirting that's obvious to everyone except the people doing it. Susie seemed oblivious, chatting with other party guests, and complimenting everyone's costumes. I stuck close to Richard, nursing a beer and trying to act normal while my world crumbled around me. Richard, bless him, seemed to sense something was wrong. "Everything okay?" he asked during a lull in conversation. "Peachy," I replied, watching my wife laugh at something Dominic whispered in her ear. "Just enjoying the show." Richard followed my gaze and frowned. "Want to talk about it?" "Not yet," I said, "but soon." Around 10 o'clock, Richard suggested party games. Nothing too elaborate, just some Halloween-themed charades and a costume contest. Innocent fun that became decidedly less innocent when Dominic kept finding excuses to touch my wife during the games. A hand on her back here, a squeeze of her shoulder there. Small gestures that probably looked friendly to everyone else but felt like knife wounds to me. The breaking point came during a game of Halloween trivia. Teams of 2, couples mixed up for fun. Naturally, Alicia ended up partnered with Dominic while I got stuck with Susie. The questions were stupid. Horror movie quotes, Halloween traditions, that kind of thing. But Dominic and Alicia were acting like they were competing for a Nobel Prize, high-fiving after every correct answer, celebrating with hugs that lasted way too long. "They make a good team," Susie commented, seemingly oblivious to what was happening right in front of her face. "Yeah," I said through gritted teeth. "Real good." The trivia game ended with Dominic and Alicia as the winners. Their victory celebration involved Dominic lifting my wife off the ground and spinning her around while she laughed like a teenager. The sight of another man's hands on my wife's waist, her arms around his neck, her face glowing with genuine happiness, it was too much. I excused myself and headed to the kitchen for another beer, hoping some distance would help me calm down. It didn't. If anything, being alone made it worse. I stood at Richard's kitchen island, gripping my beer bottle like a lifeline, trying to decide what to do next. That's when I heard them. Can't keep doing this, Alicia was saying in a hushed voice. Why not? Dominic's reply was equally quiet, but close enough that I knew they were just around the corner. We're not hurting anyone. Alex is getting suspicious. And what about Susie? Susie doesn't know anything. She's too trusting. I feel terrible lying to her. She's my best friend. Then maybe we should tell them. A pause. My heart hammered against my ribs. Tell them what, exactly? Alicia asked. That we're in love. That this marriage thing isn't working out for either of us. That we want to be together. In love. The words hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just a fling or a moment of weakness. This was a full-blown emotional affair with plans for the future. My future. I should have confronted them right then. Should have marched around the corner and demanded an explanation. Instead, I froze like a deer in headlights, listening to my wife and her lover plan their happily ever after. It's not that simple, Alicia said. Alex is a good man. He doesn't deserve this. Good men finish last, babe. You know that. Don't call me babe at the party. Why? Afraid someone will hear? Afraid someone will get hurt? Someone's going to get hurt anyway. Better to rip the Band-Aid off now. I'd heard enough. More than enough. I set my beer down with shaking hands and walked back toward the living room, my mind racing. They were planning to leave their spouses. They were in love. My marriage was over, and I was apparently the last person to know about it. The party continued around me in a haze of fake cobwebs and plastic skeletons. I went through the motions, laughed at jokes, complimented costumes, made small talk. While inside I was screaming. Alicia and Dominic had returned to the group, acting like nothing had happened, like they hadn't just planned the destruction of 2 marriages in Richard's kitchen. Around midnight, people started leaving. I was ready to go home and confront Alicia, to demand the truth and figure out what came next. But Dominic had other plans. Hey, Alex, he said, cornering me near the front door. Can I talk to you for a minute? Sure, I replied, though talking to him was the last thing I wanted to do. He pulled me aside, away from the departing guests. Up close, I could smell alcohol on his breath and see the flush in his cheeks that came from too many beers and too much confidence. Look, buddy, he said, putting a hand on my shoulder that felt like a lead weight. I need to tell you something, man to man. Here it comes, I thought. The confession. Part of me was almost relieved that the charade was finally ending. I've been sleeping with your wife. The words hung in the air between us like a toxic cloud. Even though I'd known, even though I'd suspected and found evidence and overheard their conversation, hearing him say it out loud was devastating. For how long? I asked, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. 3 months. Started at a company happy hour. One thing led to another. You know how it is. No, I said. I don't know how it is. Explain it to me. Dominic shrugged, like adultery was as common as ordering pizza. She was unhappy. You weren't giving her what she needed. I was available. It just happened. It just happened, I repeated. Like a car accident. Look, I'm not trying to be a dick about this. I like you, Alex. You're a good guy. But Alicia and I, we have something special, something real. And you decided to tell me this at a Halloween party because I'm tired of sneaking around. Because she deserves better than living a lie. Because you deserve to know the truth. The rage that had been building all evening finally boiled over. Before I could think about consequences or witnesses or the fact that we were at my friend's house, my fist connected with Dominic's jaw. The punch wasn't particularly skillful. I'm a restaurant manager, not a boxer. But it had 8 years of marriage and 3 months of betrayal behind it. Dominic staggered backward, crashed into Richard's coat closet, and sent a shower of winter jackets cascading onto the floor. Jesus Christ, Richard shouted, appearing from nowhere. What the hell is going on? Dominic straightened up, rubbing his jaw and grinning like a maniac. Just having a conversation with your buddy here about his wife. Alex, Richard looked at me with concern and confusion. What's he talking about? Before I could answer, Dominic dropped his final bomb. It wasn't just me, he said, still grinning despite the red mark on his face. Ask your wife about Susie, too. The words hit me like a second punch. Susie? What did Susie have to do with anything? What are you talking about? I demanded. Your wife's got some interesting hobbies, buddy. Some interesting friends. Turns out she's more adventurous than either of us gave her credit for. The implication was clear, and it made me sick. This wasn't just an affair between 2 people. This was something bigger, something more twisted than I'd imagined. I lunged for him again, but Richard caught my arm. "Not in my house," Richard said firmly. "Whatever this is about, you handle it somewhere else." Dominic straightened his loincloth and headed for the door. "Tell Alicia I'll call her tomorrow. We need to talk about next steps." He left me standing in Richard's entryway, surrounded by fallen coats and shattered assumptions, trying to process what had just happened. My wife was cheating on me with her best friend's husband. Her best friend was somehow involved, and I was the last person to know about any of it. "Alex," Richard said quietly, "talk to me." But I couldn't talk, not yet. I needed to go home and confront Alicia. I needed to understand what "ask your wife about Susie" meant. I needed to figure out how my life had turned into a bad soap opera without me noticing. "I have to go," I said, grabbing my jacket from the pile on the floor. "Alex, wait." But I was already out the door, walking to my car with my head spinning and my knuckles throbbing. Behind me, I could hear Richard calling my name. But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I had a wife to confront and a marriage to end. The drive home from Richard's house took 12 minutes, but it felt like 12 hours. My mind was racing through 3 months of lies, trying to piece together clues I'd missed. Every late night, every mysterious text, every shower immediately after coming home, it all made sense now. Horrible, crystal clear sense. Alicia's car was already in our driveway when I pulled up. She'd left the party right after my confrontation with Dominic, probably panicking about damage control. Good, let her panic. Let her try to figure out how to explain away 3 months of betrayal. I found her in our bedroom, still wearing the Catwoman costume but with the mask off. She was sitting on the edge of our bed, staring at her hands like they held the secrets of the universe. When I walked in, she looked up with eyes that were red from crying. "Alex," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to talk." "Yeah," I agreed. "We do. But first I need you to explain what Dominic meant about Susie." Her face went white, completely, utterly white, like I'd just told her she had 6 months to live. "What did he say about Susie?" "He said to ask you about her. Said you had interesting hobbies and interesting friends, so I'm asking." Alicia stood up and walked to our dresser, avoiding eye contact. "Alex, it's complicated. Uncomplicated." She took a deep breath, and I could see her trying to figure out how much to admit, how much she could still hide. The calculating look on her face made me angrier than anything else so far. Even now, caught red-handed, she was still trying to manipulate the situation. "Susie and we've been friends for a long time. Since college. We've always been close." "How close?" Another pause, more calculation. "We've experimented, together, with other people sometimes." The room started spinning. I sat down hard in the chair by our window, trying to process what she was telling me. "Are you saying you and Susie are—" "We're not gay, if that's what you're asking. We like to explore. Together. It's not about replacing our marriages. It's about experiencing life. And Dominic is part of this exploration. Sometimes. Sometimes." I repeated the word like it was foreign. "How many times is sometimes?" "Alex, please. This isn't about you. It's about me figuring out who I am, what I want from life." "It became about me the minute you said I do, 8 years ago," I shouted, standing up so fast the chair nearly tipped over. "It became about me when you decided to use our marriage as your cover story for whatever the hell this is." "I never meant for it to go this far," she said, and now she was crying again. "It started as just fun between friends. Then Dominic got involved, and feelings got complicated." "Feelings got complicated," I repeated. "Is that what we're calling it? I love you, Alex. I've always loved you, but I love him too. And Susie, she's been part of my life longer than you have." I stared at my wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, and realized I didn't know her at all. The woman I'd married, the woman I'd built a life with, was a stranger, worse than a stranger. She was a liar and a cheat, who'd been using our marriage as a front for her sexual adventures. "I want you out," I said. "Alex, we can work through this. We can go to counseling, figure out—" "I want you out of this house, tonight. This is my house too. Then I'll leave. I don't care. I just can't be in the same space as you right now." I grabbed a duffel bag from our closet and started throwing clothes into it. Alicia watched me pack with tears streaming down her face, but she didn't try to stop me. Maybe she realized there was nothing left to say. Maybe she was relieved that the lies were finally over. "Where will you go?" she asked, as I zipped up the bag. "Richard's. My mother's. A hotel. Anywhere but here. Alex, please. Can't we at least talk about this like adults? I stopped at the bedroom door and turned back to look at her. She was still beautiful, even with smeared makeup and tears. Still the woman I'd fallen in love with 9 years ago. But that woman had been an illusion, a performance designed to keep me happy, while she lived her real life behind my back. Adults don't lie to their spouses for 3 months, I said. Adults don't have group sex with their best friends while their husbands are home doing laundry. Adults don't get caught and then try to blame their behavior on finding themselves. And that's not fair. Fair? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been telling me you wanted an open marriage before you opened it. Fair would have been divorcing me before you started fucking around. Fair would have been giving me the choice to participate or walk away. I was scared, she whispered. Of what? That I might say no? That I might not be cool with sharing my wife with the neighborhood? Of losing you? Well, congratulations. Mission accomplished. I left her crying in our bedroom and drove to my mother's house across town. Mom was a night owl, so I knew she'd still be awake, despite the late hour. She took one look at my face and put on a pot of coffee without asking questions. Marriage trouble? She asked after I'd settled into her kitchen with a steaming mug. Marriage over, I corrected. Want to talk about it? I told her everything. The late nights, the suspicious behavior, the hotel receipt, the confrontation at the party. Mom listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or making sympathetic noises. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do? She finally asked. Divorce her. Take half of everything. Move on with my life. That's the practical answer. What's the emotional answer? I thought about it. What did I want, beyond the obvious legal steps? What would make me feel better about being played for a fool for 3 months? I want her to hurt, I admitted. I want her to feel as humiliated and betrayed as I do right now. I want her to lose something that matters to her. That's understandable, Mom said. Just don't do anything stupid in the name of revenge. Define stupid. Anything that lands you in jail or costs you the divorce settlement. So creative humiliation is okay? Mom smiled for the first time all night. Creative humiliation is an art form. I spent the night on Mom's couch, staring at the ceiling and planning my next moves. Legal moves, practical moves, and yes, a few creative moves that would help balance the scales of justice. Alicia had made me look like a fool. Now it was my turn to return the favor. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to Richard's house. I needed to apologize for the scene at his party and fill him in on the details. Richard and Nikki deserved to know what had happened in their home. I found Richard in his garage, tinkering with his motorcycle. He looked up when I walked in, took one look at my face, and set down his wrench. You look like hell, he said. Feel worse. I owe you an apology for last night. Forget about it. What's the story? I told him everything, just like I'd told my mother. Richard listened with the same quiet attention, but his expression got darker as the story progressed. By the time I finished, he looked ready to punch Dominic himself. Jesus, Alex, I'm sorry. I had no idea. Nobody did. That was the point. What can Nikki and I do to help? Just be my friends. I'm going to need people in my corner for what comes next. What comes next? I smiled, and Richard took a step back. Apparently, my expression was a little scary. Alicia wants to explore life and experience new things, I said. I'm going to help her with that. I'm going to give her some experiences she'll never forget. Alex, nothing illegal, I assured him. Nothing that will hurt me in the divorce, just some creative problem solving. Richard studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. What do you need? That afternoon, I put my plan into motion. Step 1 was information gathering. I needed to know Alicia's schedule, Dominic's routine, and Susie's weaknesses. I needed to understand the full scope of their betrayal before I could respond appropriately. I started with Dominic. A few phone calls to mutual acquaintances revealed that he was a regular at CrossFit Phoenix, the same gym where Alicia worked out. He went every day at lunch, spent 2 hours there, and treated the place like his personal social club. He was also notorious for leaving his gym bag unlocked and his car windows down. Sloppy security for a man who just destroyed 2 marriages. Susie was easier to research. She owned a small hair salon called Sheer Perfection and lived for social media. Her Instagram was a constant stream of client photos, motivational quotes, and humble brags about her business success. She was proud, image conscious, and completely dependent on her reputation in the community. All useful information. As for Alicia, I knew her routine better than anyone. She'd be going to work on Monday morning, pretending everything was normal, probably hoping I'd cool down over the weekend and agree to work things out. She had no idea that I was done working things out. I was ready to work things over. Sunday night I called her. "Alex," she sounded hopeful, like maybe I was calling to apologize. "We need to talk," I said. "Can you meet me at Murphy's bar tomorrow after work?" "Of course, yes, I'll be there at 6. "Good. And Alicia? Don't bring Susie. Don't bring Dominic. Don't bring anyone. This conversation is between us." "Okay, I understand." But she didn't understand, not yet. She thought this was going to be a reconciliation meeting, a chance to explain herself and convince me to forgive her. She had no idea that I was about to introduce her to a side of myself she'd never seen before. The old Alex, the trusting husband, the supportive partner, the man who did laundry and asked no questions, was gone. In his place was someone harder, smarter, and a lot less forgiving. Someone who was about to teach 3 cheaters what real consequences looked like. Monday morning arrived gray and cold, matching my mood perfectly. I'd spent Sunday night at my mother's house, finalizing my plans and making sure every detail was legal, logical, and devastating. Mom had listened to my schemes with the kind of attention she usually reserved for her favorite crime shows. "You're sure about this?" she'd asked over breakfast. "I'm sure about everything except how long it's going to take," I replied. "But I've got time. Patience is a virtue, right?" "Revenge is a dish best served cold," she corrected. "But don't let it freeze your heart." I drove to work that morning, feeling more focused than I had in months. The restaurants needed my attention. I'd been distracted lately, and my staff had noticed. Time to get back to business while I planned my personal business on the side. My assistant manager, Jennifer, cornered me around 10 o'clock. "Boss, you okay? You seem different today." "Different how?" "I don't know. More intense? Like you're planning something?" "Maybe I am," I said, which made her laugh nervously and change the subject. The truth was, I felt more like myself than I had in months. The confusion and self-doubt were gone, replaced by clarity and purpose. I had a mission now: make sure Alicia, Dominic, and Susie faced real consequences for their actions. Not violent consequences. I wasn't a psychopath. But public, humiliating, life-changing consequences that would make them think twice before betraying people again. At lunch, I drove to CrossFit Phoenix. Dominic's car was in the parking lot, a black pickup truck with vanity plates that read Dominator. Subtle as a brick through a window. I parked across the street and watched the gym entrance until I saw him go inside. Phase 1 of my plan required access to his gym routine, and I'd already figured out how to get it. CrossFit Phoenix posted daily workouts on their social media, along with photos of members completing the exercises. Dominic appeared in these photos regularly, always flexing for the camera, always making sure everyone knew how strong he was. What the photos also showed was his routine. Same locker every day, number 47. Same time slot, 12:30 to 2:30. Same post-workout ritual, protein shake at the juice bar while he flirted with female gym members. I waited until he'd been inside for an hour, then walked into the gym like I belonged there. The front desk staff were busy with other customers, and the gym was crowded enough that one more person wouldn't be noticed. I made my way to the locker room, found number 47, and confirmed what I'd suspected. It was secured with a combination lock, but the combination was visible on a piece of tape stuck to the inside of his gym bag. Some people never learn. I didn't touch anything that day. Just observed, memorized, and planned. Tomorrow would be different. That evening, I met Alicia at Murphy's bar as promised. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a back booth and nursing a glass of wine. She dressed carefully, a blue dress I'd always complimented, subtle makeup, hair styled the way I liked it. She was trying to remind me of better times, trying to make me remember why I'd fallen in love with her. It wasn't going to work. "Hi," she said as I slid into the booth across from her. "Hi. You look tired. I haven't been sleeping well. Funny how betrayal affects your rest patterns." She winced. "Alex, I know you're angry." I'm not angry," I interrupted. "Angry was Saturday night. Angry was punching Dominic at Richard's party. This is something else." "What is it?" I studied her face, looking for any sign of the woman I'd married. She was still beautiful, still had the same green eyes and soft smile that had attracted me 9 years ago. But now I knew what was behind that smile. Now I understood what those eyes had seen while I was home alone, trusting her completely. This is clarity, I said. This is me understanding exactly who you are and what our marriage really meant to you. Our marriage meant everything to me. No, it meant convenience. It meant having someone to pay half the bills while you played house with your friends. That's not true. Then explain the hotel receipts. Explain 3 months of lies. Explain why you're more upset about getting caught than you are about hurting me. She started crying, which might have affected me a week ago. Now it just looked like another performance, another attempt to manipulate my emotions. I never meant to hurt you, she whispered, but you did hurt me, repeatedly, for 3 months. And the only reason you stopped is because Dominic got drunk and decided to confess. Alex, please, can't we try to work through this? Can't we go to counseling and figure out how to rebuild trust? I leaned back in the booth and really looked at her. This woman who'd shared my bed for 8 years, who knew my dreams and fears, who'd promised to love and honor me until death do us part. This stranger who'd been living a double life while I made dinner reservations and planned anniversary gifts. Here's what's going to happen, I said calmly. Tomorrow morning, you're going to call a divorce attorney. You're going to file papers citing irreconcilable differences, and you're going to agree to a 50-50 split of all assets. You're going to move out of our house by